Hi, third graders. This is Mrs. Oyster, and today I am going to read to you chapter one of Wind in the Willows. And this chapter is called The Riverbank Part One. So, a little bit of background knowledge before we start. The Wind in the Willows is an old classic tale, and it's written in British English, which is slightly different than American English. So, you will hear some words that are not words that we typically use here. Also, a classic tale. What is a classic tale? A classic tale is a story that is considered to be really well written, and it has been kind of held up over time, which means people keep on reading it. Even though it might be a really old story, it is a story that people still enjoy and read often. It's a fictional story, this one, about animal characters living near a river in the woods or forest. And the main characters in this story are a mole, a water rat, a badger, and a toad. So if you look down here at the bottom on the far left, that's our water rat. Now that's what a real water rat would look like. In this story, you'll notice they're a little more cartoony. The next one over is a badger. It's got that telltale stripe on its head. Next to that is a toad. And then next to that, I think is supposed to be a mole, but I believe that is an incorrect picture. I think that is another water rat. So I'll have to show you a mole another time. All right. There are also some important, what we call literary terms. That means vocabulary that's related to literature that I really want you to understand. And there's four biggies today. The first one is probably a review. In fact, these first three are probably review. It's plot. The word plot means the events in a story. So if I ask you, what is the plot? You're going to tell me what are the events that happened in the story. The second term is characters, and characters are people or sometimes animals that are in a story. And the third one is the setting. This is the one that, in my experience, students have the hardest time remembering because it's not a word we use a lot. Setting means where and when a story takes place. So, for example, of course, now I can't think of a story. Let's see. Alice in Wonderland. It takes place in Wonderland and then also on her home grounds. Let's see. Harry Potter takes place, the setting, Harry Potter would be Hogwarts and then sometimes at his uncle's house. Now, this fourth word is probably new for most of you. It's a great big word, and I'll say it for you. Personification. Personification is a term that means when an animal or an object in a story behaves or is described like a person. So see how the beginning of that word, personification, the first six letters are person. So it's when you take something that is not a person, like an animal or an object, but it's described as if it is a person. So here's an example. The flame of the candle danced in the dark. Now, a candle's flame doesn't really dance, right? Dancing is something people do. But this is personification because it's describing the movement of the candle flame like a person. The bottom one, the cat's ghastly singing woke me this morning. Now, we know cats don't really sing, people sing, but they're describing the sound that the cat is making as singing. They're personifying the cat. You will notice a lot of personification in this story, and we'll be talking a lot about that at the end of the read aloud. Okay, so today, in chapter one, I want you to listen carefully to hear the adventures that these animals have along the riverbank. Let's get started. The mole had been working very hard all the morning, spring cleaning his little home, first with brooms, then with dusters, then on ladders and steps and chairs, with a brush and a pail of whitewash. He did this until he had dust in his throat and eyes, and splashes of whitewash all over his black fur. Spring was moving in the air above and the earth below, and around him and his dark and lowly little house. Any wonder he suddenly flung down his brush on the floor and said, "Bother!" and "Hang spring cleaning!" and bolted out of the house without even waiting to put on his coat. Those are some examples of the British English saying bother and hang spring cleaning. Don't think I have used that term anytime recently. Mole immediately made for the steep little tunnel, and without a moment's hesitation he began scraping, scratching, and scrabbling. He worked busily with his little paws and muttered to himself, up we go, till at last, pop! His snout came out into the sunlight, and he found himself rolling in the warm grass of a great meadow. All right, I'm going to pause here to ask you a question. Why did Mole decide to leave his home? This is fine, he said to himself. This is better than whitewashing, he added as he jumped with delight at the joy of spring. In this state of happiness, he made his way across the meadow till he reached the hedge on the farther side. It all seemed too good to be true, as moving hither and thither, he observed everywhere birds building and leaves and flowers bursting forth. He thought his happiness was complete when, as he meandered aimlessly along, he came to the edge of a full-fed river. There he stood quite mesmerized, as never before had he seen a river. He watched in awe as it shimmered and shined, gurgled and burbled, swirled and curled its way seaward. So bewitched and fascinated was he that he trotted for a while by the side of it. Eventually, exhausted by this tremendous effort, he sat down on the bank to rest. As he sat on the grass and gazed across the river, a dark hole in the bank opposite, just above the water's edge, caught his eye. Mole quietly contemplated what a nice snug dwelling place it would make. As he gazed, something bright and small seemed to twinkle like a tiny star down in the heart of it. But it could hardly be a star, and it was too glittering and small for a glowworm. Then, as he looked, it winked at him, and so revealed itself to be an eye, and a small face began gradually to grow up round it like a frame round a picture. A brown little face with whiskers, a grave, round face with the same twinkle in its eye, small, neat ears, and thick, silky hair. It was the water rat. The two animals stood and regarded each other cautiously. "Hello, Mole," said the water rat. "Hello, Rat," said the mole. "Would you like to come over?" inquired the rat. "Oh, it's all very well to ask," said the mole, rather grumpily, he being new to a river and riverside life and its ways. The rat said nothing, but stooped and unfastened a rope and hauled on it, then lightly stepped into a little boat which the mole had not observed. It was painted blue outside and white within, and it was just the size for two animals, and the mole loved it immediately. The rat sculled across. Then he held up his forepaw as the mole stepped gingerly down. "Lean on that," he said. "Now then, step lively." And the mole, to his great delight, found himself actually seated in the stern of a real boat. "This has been a wonderful day," said he as the rat shoved off and took to the sculls again. "Do you know I've never been in a boat before in all my life?" "What?" cried the rat, open-mouthed. "Never been in a— You never— Well, What have you been doing then?" "Is it so nice as all that?" asked the mole shyly, though he was quite prepared to believe it, as he leant back in his seat and surveyed the cushions, the oars, and all the fascinating fittings. "Nice? It's the only thing," said the water rat solemnly as he leaned forward for his stroke. "Believe me, my young friend, there is nothing, absolutely nothing, half so much worth doing as simply messing about in boats. Simply messing," he went on dreamily, "messing about in boats. Messing—" "Look ahead, Rat!" cried the mole suddenly. It was too late. The boat struck the bank full tilt. The oarsman lay on his back at the bottom of the boat, his heels in the air. "About in boats, or with boats," the rat went on cheerily, picking himself up with a pleasant laugh. "In or out of 'em, it doesn't matter. Look here, if you've really nothing else to do, what do you say we spend time on the river together?" All right, here's my next check for understanding question. Who, so far, are the main characters in this story? The mole waggled his toes from sheer happiness, spread his chest with a sigh of contentment, and leaned back blissfully into the soft cushions. "What a day I'm having," he said. "Let us start at once." "Hold on a minute, then," said the rat, as he tied fast the boat and climbed up into his hole above. Moments later he reappeared, staggering under a fat wicker luncheon basket. "Shove that under your feet," he said to the mole as he passed it down into the boat. Then he untied the boat and took the sculls again. "What's inside it?" asked the mole eagerly. "There's cold chicken inside it," replied the rat. "Cold tongue, cold ham, cold beef, salad, French rolls, crescent sandwiches, potted meat, ginger beer, lemonade, soda water—" "Oh, stop, stop!" cried the mole. "This is too much." "Do you really think so?" inquired the rat seriously. "It's only what I always take on these little excursions. The other animals complain that I hardly have enough." The mole did not hear a word he said. He was already absorbed in the new life he was entering upon. He trailed upon the water and dreamed long, waking dreams. The water rat, like the good little fellow he was, sculled steadily on and did not disturb him. I like your clothes, old chap, the rat remarked after some half an hour or so had passed. I'm going to get a velvet jacket myself some day. I beg your pardon, said the mole, pulling himself together with an effort. You must think me very rude, but all this is so new to me. So this is a river. The river, corrected the rat. And you really live by the river? What a jolly life! By it and with it and on it and in it, said the rat. It's brother and sister to me, and aunts and company and food and drink and naturally washing. It's my world and I don't want any other. But isn't it a bit dull at times? The mole asked. Just you and the river and no one else to pass a word with? No one else to... Well, I mustn't be hard on you, said the rat. You're new to it. The bank is so crowded nowadays that many people are moving away altogether. Oh, no, it isn't what it used to be at all. Otters, kingfishers, dabchicks, moorhens, all of them about all day long, and always wanting you to do something, as if a fellow had no business of his own to attend to. What lies over there? Asked the mole, waving a paw towards a background of woodland that darkly framed the water meadows on one side of the river. Well, replied the rat hesitantly, that's the wild wood, and don't go there too often. Are there scary creatures there? Mole asked, trying not to tremble. The squirrels are all right, Rat replied, and the rabbits, some of 'em, but rabbits are a mixed lot. And then there's Badger, of course. He lives right in the heart of it. Wouldn't live anywhere else either. Dear old Badger, nobody interferes with him. Why, who should interfere with him? Asked the mole. Well, of course there are others, explained the rat in a hesitating sort of way. Weasels, stoats, foxes, and so on. They're all right in a way. I'm very good friends with them. Pass the time of day when we meet. But you can't trust them, and that's a fact. And beyond the wild wood? Mole asked. Beyond the wild wood is the wide world, said the rat. And that's something that doesn't matter either to you or me. I've never been there, and I'm never going, nor you either, if you've got any sense. Don't ever refer to it again, please. Now then, here's our backwater at last, where we're going to lunch. Right, my final question for you is about the setting. Remember, the setting of a story is where or when it takes place. So, based on this chapter, what is the setting of this story so far?